Heather Lear was arrested twice in 4 months in 2018. She fought with an officer and kicked a paramedic, so she was put in psychiatric hold. Her daughter ran away from town to get away from the chaos. In the year 2025, she's launching a show where nothing is off limits while looking perfect in front of thousands of people. She talks about going through menopause, getting bad filler, and trying to quit more than 20 times. But this is what's really getting attention. She's finally telling the truth about her marriages, what really happened behind the scenes, and the box of secrets she kept hidden for 40 years. Find out why she's finally ready to tell the truth. She was born in September 1961. Westwood, Los Angeles was humming with the energy of the new age at the same time that America was basking in Kennedy's hopeful light. That's when Heather Dean Lear showed up. The country was full of hope because the vows made after the war were still alive, and the Lear family added their own special piece to the American puzzle. Heather wasn't like every other blonde LA girl. Her blood had thick North Carolina roots that were made up of Native American, African, and European strands. In Tuscarora, the name Lear means hold fast, and she would have that same determination. As it turns out, she is related to Tiffany Trump through a long-lost family. If you go back far enough, they are half-fourth cousins. She was the last piece in a family that was anything but normal. She was the youngest of 4 children. Her dad, Bill Locklear, went from being in the military to going to college, which is a common path for ambitious guys today. First as a colonel in the Marines, then for 30 years as a leader at UCLA. He began working with foreign students right out of uniform in the early 1960s. He quickly rose through the ranks and became Dean of Residential Life just as the Vietnam War was reaching its peak. He wasn't just taking care of rooms. He had to deal with chaos, student unrest, and protests every night. Due to his time in the military, he brought order and edge to a school that was otherwise very messy. He was in charge of registration and records by the 1980s. Then, the registrar staff remembered him not only for his strict rules but also for his odd habits, like making Irish coffee every St. Patrick's Day, which is something that UCLA does every year. Bill stayed calm during a time of cultural upheaval. His discipline showed up in the way he raised Heather. Then there was Diane, her mother, who worked as a production executive in Hollywood's companies, which were mostly run by men. She wasn't in front of the camera, but she was in charge of what was going on behind it. One of the few women on TV in the 1960s and 1970s who really had power. For Heather, that meant that she heard about casting calls at dinner and ratings fights before bed. Heather heard talk about the pilot season while other kids heard goodnight stories. Diane had a strong but slight effect on me. Heather's work has given her the industry knowledge that most actors only get after being turned down for years. On paper, Heather's path to school looked like one of luxury. UCLA put her in one of their experimental, special, or smart lab school programs, where she did very well in debate clubs and student government. When she was at the dinner table or in the classroom, she was clear, calm, and convincing. But cracks began to show through the smooth surface. When I was 10, money started to run out. Even though her dad was famous, they weren't rich. In Los Angeles, college salaries didn't go very far, and having 4 kids meant making adjustments. Heather did better in school and at home, too. She helped her brothers with their homework and chores, and she learned the value of work before most kids did. Having to worry about money changed her in strange ways. She could have stayed in school. In 1979, she started at UCLA and chose to major in psychology, just like her dad. But then there were the sorority rejects. 2 homes, Chi Omega and Delta Delta Delta, both turned her down right away. That kind of double snub hurt Heather a lot. But it also pushed her. She didn't try to be famous, instead, she did modeling jobs on campus to pay for school. One job paid $500 per shoot. A lot of money back then, about $1,800 today. It was hard to say no to that much money. It was back to normal work soon after. By the end of her second year, Heather was juggling modeling jobs with psychology classes, rushing from class to auditions and studying scripts in between tests. It couldn't go on. Her grades went down because she missed class, and then she quit going altogether one day. Her dream at UCLA didn't end in a controversy, but with a paycheck. It was just more rewarding to be a model. Of course, things didn't go perfectly. One of her first big auditions went horribly wrong. Heather stuffed tissues in her shirt while trying out for the company to replace Suzanne Summers. She was worried about her armpit sweat. One of them fell during the interview. The people in charge laughed. Not getting a call back didn't stop her, even though it made her feel bad. Then things began to change. In 1981, she tried out for a sci-fi show with a young Tom Cruise. Neither of them got it, but being seen helped. In the same year, Aaron Spelling saw a picture of her on a Polaroid at a casting office. He risked $1,500 an episode on someone he knew nothing about and put her in Dynasty as Sammy Jardine. On her first day, she spilled coffee on a $3,000 dress. She forgot that some lines needed 17 takes, but she remembered how to spell them. That $1,500 risk brought in $50 million through transmission. Then there was the twist that made her a TV legend. Samuel Joe's fake drowning aired on Dynasty on November 4, 1982. There were 28.4 million viewers. Over $2.3 million worth of ads were shown because of the rise in numbers. She had to learn how to do it for 90 seconds while underwater. It cost ABC $75,000 to do effects. The crowd was very sad. A lot of letters were written. Dynasty was picked up for 2 more seasons after a fake death. Things got bad by 1983. During a scene where they were seducing each other, she got into a fight with Joan Collins. Colleen made fun of her playing. Lear snarled back. The props were taken away. The crew had to step in. Loss of $18,000 due to shooting delays. But the thrill of the show came from the tension. In 1984, Lear didn't just want to look good. She wished for edge. She pushed for naughtier scenes and even some nakedness, saying that network TV had to keep up with cable. ABC went crazy. They didn't use the bubble bath scene they shot. $25,000 was lost. But sales of goods went up 40% that year. A name was made for Sammy Joe. Things got more important the following year. One of the side stories on Dynasty was about Sammy Joe and Stephen Carrington, who are both gay. It blew up when it aired in the spring of 1985. There were protests by religious groups. Sponsors ran away. ABC lost $1.8 million in ad money. Lear got threats to kill him. More than 3,000 mean letters. There were paid bodyguards. 15 stations took the show off the air. Whereas, scores went through the roof. It made $4.5 million through foreign distribution. On talk shows, Lear supported the story and said it was an honest account. It was no longer just a job. It was a stand, a risk, and it made her stand out. By the craziest years of Dynasty, she was making $75,000 a week. Heather Lear did more than just play Sammy Joe from 1985 to 1989. She caused a lot of trouble. In 1987, Sammy Joe and Dex's fake wedding turned into a real fight. There were many takes, screams, and scratched arms behind the scenes. Crystal was played by Linda Evans, who also didn't hold back. It was more than just playing. Later, Entertainment Weekly said it was the best scratching and clawing ever. They weren't making things up either. Heather hit people almost every season. They had to cut out the fight with Amanda because it got too bad for the recaps. They even filmed a mud fight and a horse fight that was so rough that both women got hurt on set. That was only Dynasty. Heather went to battle of the network stars in 1986 like it was war. Even though she won the obstacle course, that wasn't what the news was about. The trash talk got picked up by her mic. Her first words to the NBC team were "pathetic losers," and she then began to name people. ABC had no choice but to say sorry. Things were worse behind the scenes, though. She is said to have pushed Melissa Gilbert during the run. There had to be some kind of security. Later, Heather revealed that she had been drinking, which is against the rules of the show. Episodes after that were never the same. Because of her, they changed the whole code of behavior. The swamp came next. It was July 1988, and Heather was shooting the return of Swamp Thing in the Florida Everglades. She almost drowned. Up until the third take, a rescue scene was going well. That's when plants in the water caught her leg. For 45 seconds, she was under. Stunt guys jumped in while they were still dressed. A lot of oxygen tanks were rushed in. That week, it was very hot, 98 degrees. That month, Heather passed out twice. She kept doing her own crazy things, though, and got stung by leeches more than once. In between takes, doctors had to pull them off. The movie did not do well at all. No one knew how close she was to dying, but she won the Razzie Award for Worst Actor. In 1989, after many years, the $75,000 an episode bought her a $2.3 million mansion on Mulholland Drive. But the parties were not in charge. In 1986, she got married to Tony Lee. He once said she could drink more than the band. The fight in their hotel room at the end of their vacation was so loud that the Cayman Islands police were called. The paparazzi got her coming out of clubs drunk at 3 a.m. The noise made people in the neighborhood unhappy. Any news on her was worth $10,000 to the National Enquirer. But Aaron Spelling's team knew how to quickly kill stories. Heather's reputation in the public eye mostly stayed the same. She tried something new in 1990. Going Places is an ABC series that will air on TGIF. It was a terrible mess. Lindsay was the name of the ticket agent she played. There were real people there. She kept getting stiff on stage, forgetting her lines, and acting out of character. Following 9 shows, she fired her long-term agent. The show got 8.2 million viewers, which isn't even close to Dynasty's 25 million. She tried to change the lines and even said she would leave. Alan Ruck, who played her co-star, said she would be late and lose. No more episodes of the show after 22. ABC lost $12 million, and Heather didn't have a job for 8 months. She had her longest dry time ever. Then there was the comeback. Melrose Place was dying in January 1993. Aaron Spelling turned in his lucky penny. Heather joined in the 19th show. She was only meant to stay for 4 shows. She made $40,000 a week, which was more than double what everyone else did. But by the end of the season, more people watched. Amanda Woodward, the role she played, wasn't just a boss. She was sneaky, smart, and hard to ignore. Even though she stayed until the very end in 1999, she never lost her guest star title. By 1994, Amanda faked a pregnancy to get Dr. Michael Mancini to do what she wanted. Layer was cold and physical, and her co-stars were shocked when she slapped them or made quick moves. The fights on the rooftops became famous. She owned power, not just played it. Then 1995 came along. Amanda gave Sydney Andrews, played by Laura Leighton, a kiss. There were a lot of lesbian kiss stories in the middle of the 1990s, and the bisexuality arc was one of them. But this wasn't meant to shock. There were layers to their scenes. Threats to do business, sexual stress, and mind games. GLAAD said it was a big deal. Laura Leighton was nominated for a Golden Globe. The press was crazy about it. It was in Rolling Stone, People, and Entertainment Weekly. She burned down a building in 1996 to get insurance money. Heather made most of the fire scenes herself. That plot point marked the end of Amanda's fall. There will be no more trying to be good. There will only be destruction and ambition. The bad girl in her story was no longer just her. She was the queen of managed chaos on TV. Heather won 3 Golden Globes in a row from 1993 to 1999. Her pay went from $40,000 to $100,000 per show. Fox ended Melrose Place in 1999, not because no one was watching, but because they could no longer pay her. Heather still wanted the same $100,000 an episode when talks of a new show began in 2009. It was over, but Aaron Spelling never forgot. He called her his lucky penny all the time. ChatGPT said she came into Spin City in the fall of 1999 like a surprise that everyone wanted but didn't expect. It wasn't even planned for Heather Layer to be there. In jest, the producers had been throwing her name around like a wish list for the group. We'd get Heather Layer if everything went well. Then, in less than 24 hours, she said yes. That one yes changed everything. She took on the part of Caitlin Moore, the smart and well-liked political strategist hired to run the mayor's campaign for senator. She gets paid about $150,000 to $175,000 per show, which makes her one of the highest-paid TV actresses. It wasn't just the money, though. She gave Michael J. Fox's world of city politics edge, intelligence, and a bit of chaos, and viewers loved it right away. With a huge jump in viewers aged 18 to 49, the show became a huge hit in its new time spot. When Locklear joined the group, it became clear that he was more than just a casting move. Fox's battle with Parkinson's disease was also becoming more obvious. It turned into a rescue mission. There was more going on than just office politics when Caitlin and Mike were on TV together. It was science ready to blow up. It was written with a lot of heart. Their flirting had a beat to it. Meetings that were tense, long looks, and jokes that were just a little too close. In one scene, Mike tried to avoid being with other women for a week to show that he felt more than just a physical attraction to her. Of course he failed, but the fall made it even better. Everything changed when Charlie Sheen came along in 2000. The romantic stress didn't go away, instead, it blew up in a different way. It was now Caitlin and Charlie Crawford who were making out. In one great episode, Caitlin's mother, the wedding scammer, tries to get her to get married. Charlie goes to a family wedding with her and acts like he is her boyfriend. It got so real that actors were breaking character in the middle of a scene. Those plots led to some of the most watched shows of the show. Not because they were romantic in the normal sense, but because Lear was the only one who could walk that fine line between funny and tense. The awards came next. The change in Lear from the sassy Amanda of Melrose Place to comedy star in Spin City wasn't just a change in direction for his work. It was nominated for a Golden Globe, which shows how versatile she is. In 2000 and 2002, when Spin City was really doing well, she got votes for both years. But there was stress going on behind the funny parts. Fox's Parkinson's was getting worse. And his movement skills weren't the only thing that was changing. The way he looked and the way he spoke were changing slowly at first. Fox said in a 2019 interview that he could feel his face getting tougher. Lear had to make changes right away. It wasn't easy to play off of someone whose funny flow was being taken away. She later said she knew she needed help at that time. It got worse with the jokes, the movies, and the business. She had more on her than just her scenes. When she switched from Fox to Sheen, it was just as strange behind the camera as it was in real life. Lear laughed as she talked about it on a panel in 2024. Michael moves quickly. Charlie has an M. Timing wasn't just about jokes. It was muscle memory, and she had to learn everything over again. In 2001, Fox had a guest role, and both stars were on set. It had an electric but not smooth vibe. In just 2 days, they shot 3 episodes. Fox was also doing work for the general good while flying in and out of scenes. Lear, she kept the ship steady, and both the crew and the cast noticed. When they met again at Fan Expo in 2025, she said Fox was one of her all-time faves. People in Hollywood don't just give that kind of praise out for no reason. She watched the show all the way through April 30, 2002, when it ended. Spin City had 145 shows over 6 seasons by that point. Lear had been in 132 of them. That she was going in 2004 was talked about a lot, but it was all just talk. The show ended in 2002. Her last episodes had a lot of different things going on, relationship problems, almost weddings, and just enough comedy to keep things interesting until the end. The show kept getting good ratings, even after it moved from New York to Los Angeles for later seasons. That being said, the ending felt like the end of more than just a show. The end of a type of TV we don't watch much of these days. Group comedies with good writing and plenty of room to move around. The quiet change of Caitlin Moore from a guarded political strategist to an emotionally open love lead became a metaphor for Lear's own change. Not as secure, more complex, and always visible. A lot of the time, people forget what happened next. Some say she tried to bring Uptown Girls back in 2006. Not quite. In the 2003 movie, she played a mother who was emotionally aloof. But the project she worked on in 2006 was a pilot called Women of a Certain Age, which was nothing like the movie. It was never shown. The networks didn't care. After years of wins, it was her first public slip-up as a leader. The show was about women dealing with the later parts of life, but it couldn't compete with the new wave of reality shows that were taking over the screens. In Lear's case, it was the start of a job change from network star to industry survivor. She played a part in 2009 that was a little too close to home. Flying By was an independent film with a small budget that starred Billy Ray Cyrus as a man who was going downhill in middle age. Lear played his wife, a woman who was broken by her addiction and her loss. It wasn't made up. She was quietly going through her own problems with drug abuse and a string of public scandals at that point in her life. The movie wasn't a hit with critics, but her acting was honest, open, and vulnerable. One critic said it was the most like seeing Heather Layer without her mask on. The fact that Patricia Neal's last movie role gave the movie a weight that no studio could have faked. By 2012, Lear was back in comedy. This time on Hot in Cleveland, she played Chloe, a PR rep for Teeth and Sass. Her first episode was seen by 1.34 million people in season 4, when she started. Some of the most watched shows that season were the ones she was in. Fans did watch for the nostalgia, but what kept them watching was how well she performed and how well she got along with the company. It looked like she had never been off of TV. And maybe she hadn't in her mind. At that point, she changed topics again, this time to courtroom theater. She played Rachel King on Franklin and Bash, the woman who made the show's main players sweat. She used legalese like she had been doing it for years, but there were also emotional undercurrents going on beneath the surface. The chemistry she had with Mark Paul Gosselaar was just right to get people talking in the industry, but both stars kept things classy. As Lear slowly took back her place in Hollywood, not as a tabloid star but as a working actress with real skills, this part came along at a good time. Then the Melrose Place wave came back. In 2024, her old co-stars started a show called Still the Place. They talked about old shows, revealed secrets, and broke down drama that happened on and off screen. Not only did Lear not become a regular, but she was in almost every show. Stories about her character Amanda Woodward kept coming up. Some are funny, and others are strangely moving. People talked about her name even when she wasn't there, making her a kind of story in her own life. Through 2009, she played a less important part in the independent film Flying By, which most people missed in theaters. But this wasn't like any other gig for her. She played a woman who was married to a man who was going downhill in middle age. The person drank too much, yelled too much, and hid their pain until it came out. The fact that it was so true to Layer's life made it hit harder. There was no playing here. Getting help in front of a camera. Even reviewers who didn't like the movie stopped to praise her performance. It's rough and painful in a way that doesn't need to be practiced. Then Hot in Cleveland came along. Not just a return, but also a warning. From 2012 to 2013, she played Chloe, a former Miss Ohio who became a press agent after her contest days. People loved it. During her season, ratings stayed around 1.34 million, making her shows the most watched. She could be both funny and powerful in that part. The character's self-assurance was like a mask that Lear could put on for a short time to keep going, and it worked. The chaos stopped for a moment. Then she played Rachel King on Franklin and Bash from 2013 to 2014. In that role, she was very precise in court. She was tough and scary, but she had some flaws. People said that she and Mark Paul Gosselaar had chemistry off-screen, but nothing ever stuck. The respect was what stuck. People loved seeing her stretch again, and people who worked with her saw how seriously she took her job, even though there was a lot going on behind the scenes. Even though the show was silly and light, she made every scene serious. Then, just when everyone in the business thought she was done, a podcast changed everything. Not hers, at least not yet. It's called Still the Place and came out in July 2024. With hosts who used to be on Melrose Place, it quickly became a haven for fans of prime-time soaps from the 1990s. Her name kept coming up. They talked about how smart she was, how disciplined she was, and the stories she told that were never shown on TV. She was still the center of attention on the show even when she wasn't there. She showed up in strange places on Don't Trust the Bee in Between. In Apartment 23, she played herself with cutting wit and didn't mind making fun of her own fame. These were planned public events. She was only in a few episodes and cameos, but they kept her in the public eye while she slowly built a life outside of TV. Of course, this doesn't change what happened from 1986 to 2025. When she married Tommy Lee in 1986, everything seemed to go so well. Young, popular, and careless love until it was revealed that they were cheating. They were caught on camera, and Lear had to say that she had only ever planned to get married once. She asked for a divorce after 7 years. It wasn't just a breakup either. It broke her public image and made her feel broken on the inside. She did it again. She got married to Richie Sambora in 1994. It went better at first. They had a girl named Ava in 1997, after 35 hours of labor and an emergency C-section. She will always remember that day. However, Samora kept touring, and the gap got bigger. She asked for a divorce in 2006 after she found something. Everyone has emails and pictures, but no one knows the whole story. It was enough. He was caught off guard. They were able to co-parent in the end, but the damage had already been done. Then there was Chris Heiser, high school sweetheart who got back together in middle age. They said yes in April 2020. It looked like a second chance for 5 years. There were pictures of her and she called him her forever. But it was over by early 2025. Not much going on, just quiet. Friends said it hadn't worked out for months and that she had already moved on. She picked herself this time. That choice wasn't made by chance. In 2018, her whole world fell apart. First, there was the bail hearing in February. She was accused of domestic abuse and of attacking her parents. Then there was another call to 911 in June. It was said that she tried to hurt herself. She punched a deputy and kicked a paramedic when the cops arrived. She was put in a psychiatric hold in the hospital and later pleaded not guilty to 8 minor charges. She was given 30 days in a mental health center by the judge. At the time, her 20-year-old daughter begged her to go to rehab. Ava finally left town to get away from it all and pick up the pieces. It was a rough cycle. Too many drugs, mental holds, and more than 20 stays in rehab. A person who knew said it might have been 25. Drugs, alcohol, and sadness. She had fought all of it. But by late 2019, something had changed. She began to show up. She went to therapy every week. And in April 2020, she had been sober for a whole year. Ava sent her mom cupcakes that said, "I love you, Mama." It wasn't just a nice thing to do. That was a sign that they were back together. Her co-stars from Melrose Place praised her on Instagram, and she slowly started to come back into the public, not for fame but for a reason. She went on stage with Michael J. Fox and William Shatner at Fan Expo Toronto in August 2025. It ought to have been a romantic trick. It spread like wildfire instead. She told lies about Spin City, like the kiss scene between her and Fox that was supposed to air but never did. The crowd lost it, and she was back in every news story, but this time for her charm instead of what she did. Following 1 month, in September 2025, she began a show called What Do You Want? With Jillian Barberie and Melanie Mantle, a nurse. It went off. Every Wednesday night, people called in. She talked about going through menopause, hormone therapy, bad plastic surgery, haters, and dating after 40. There were no rules. She even said she felt bad about getting filler shots early in life, which made her look fake during her Dynasty. Not only was her show personal, but it was also brave. The pictures of her at that event, with her hair down and no shoes on, went viral in hours. People couldn't believe she was 63 years old. "You do not age, Heather," wrote one person. They weren't making things up either. It wasn't the glitz that made the pictures famous, it was the ease. In October 2025, she spoke at Calgary Expo, but this time not as a star but as a public figure. She was on a mental health panel and talked freely about her outpatient treatment that began in 2019, her years of relapse, and the times when she changed. It was the first time in public that she talked about it.